will turn things over to Katie Aviña, who is the executive director and one of the superstars you saw in the film just now. So I'm excited for you all to get to hear from them.
Hi, hello everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you, and thank you, Alex, and everyone for putting the video together for us. We really do appreciate it. We also have Miss Norma here, Norma Garces, who was the director previous before I was, and we also have Brandon, one of our students. Brandon, you can say hello. And we also have Miss Yolanda, our school counselor. Brandon, if you want to say a few words about yourself, I'll kind of let everyone do it, their own introduction.
Yeah. Well, as you heard, my name is Brandon, or Brandon Rivera Ruiz, and I am a senior, so I'll be graduating in 2 weeks, I believe, or 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm excited about that. For plans for next year, I'm still deciding. I want to like go to college and open up doors for my family and like for my culture, but I'm still undecided. Because I've had bad experiences with school in the past, so I'm still indecisive. But yeah, one last thing, I have my younger brother with me, so if you hear any background noises, I apologize in advance. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
No apologies needed, right? It's the way of it is right now. It's a future Colegio student, I said. Miss Yolanda, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yolanda Martinez Pineda. I am the school counselor here at El Colegio. I actually started as the after-school program coordinator. And after being in this space and being encouraged, like Daisy put it in the video, they push you to return to school and get my degree for school counseling. I am back as the school counselor here. So I've been here in this space that's truly healing. I'm super inspired by all of our students. And Brandon is too humble. He has been accepted at colleges, but we've deferred. And so he's still kind of like thinking. And so, yeah, I've had the honor to work with the youth and the wonderful staff here at El Colegio.
And Miss Norma, if you wanted to say anything about yourself. She leaves. Is she there still?
I'm muted.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Norma Garces, and I was executive director of El Colegio since 2011 to before COVID. I ran away. I knew COVID was coming, so I left. So, and I just want to say, like, I was in tears, like how proud I am of everybody that is there, because we all get pushed, and I am also finishing school, so we all, El Colegio is home.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. And like I said, I am now currently the executive director here, following huge footsteps after Norma. And I started when the pandemic happened. So Norma ran away and I jumped into it. And it's been a very beautiful transition, even through everything that we've had to go through. The school is really set up strong in that sense, and it is a place that we heal, and it's a place that pushes us to continue to further better ourselves for our students. So I do want to open it up. If you all have more questions or things that you want to learn more about, I want to also open it up to the audience who's with us. And I see even a few of our staff here. It's so hard to not be able to see everyone. Now I know what all our teachers feel like. Just kidding. Well, until there's a question, I can share more about El Colegio that we didn't necessarily get to say in the school. I know you saw probably a picture, but one thing that we always acknowledge even before we begin any events or just any gatherings is that we remember that we're in Black and Brown space and that we're on Native land. That's really important as part of our identity as a school, to acknowledge that and to ensure that all the voices are heard and valued in our space. I was just double checking the chat if there were any questions.
Katie, I can ask a question. When we look at the video, I think it's really, really clear that art is a huge component of El Colegio. There's so many murals and also just student work throughout, and sculptures, mosaics, everything. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about how those came to be, and yeah.
And I'll ask Miss Jolie or Miss Norma to step into for the past, but one of the things that is that our seniors do, and that's where a lot of the artwork you may see comes from, is in 12th grade, our seniors work on a senior project. And so they need to study something that is outside of their regular curriculum, a social justice issue that's important to them and that's meaningful to them, or it's something that they're passionate about. And they spend the year researching, they write a paper. It's kind of like their passage out of high school, right? And preparing them, bridging for college. And then they have a presentation. And right now, tomorrow, they'll be doing another round of presentations to the community. And part of that, aside from the paper, the slideshow, there's an art piece of any element of art that they want to show what that represents whatever it is that they have done their project and social justice research project on.
Yeah, and it actually, El Colegio started with a group of teachers and artists. So that's how it started, as its roots. And so art has been a big component of just overall school culture. However, it's also been one of the biggest challenges, I would say, because we have a lot of artists who come to this space and want to make it more beautiful. And I think the hard part is having artists and also artist teachers and then funding, right? Schools are always having trouble with cuts, and art, unfortunately, is one of those ones that, do you need math? Do you need science? Or do we need art? And so it's one of those that gets really put to the back of needs. And so that's the unfortunate part. But we try as much as we can to infuse art in what we do. And also to try to bring artists into this space. So there is a lot of collective, when you look at the building, collective artwork created. So there'll be artists who come in and create murals with our students. So there was recently one that was done with Olivia Levins, right outside. And I forgot what it was in representation of, but a lot of the artwork you see around is in community.
And that one still has yet to be finished and unveiled because winter happened as they were finishing up, and our students were working with her as well, but it's representing Puerto Rico and liberation in Puerto Rico. So
Thank you. It looks like you guys have a question in the chat from Joe, wondering about how students are involved in school governance.
Ooh, that is a great question. As far as like on our school board, I would love for them to have a seat, but they don't have a seat. However, I can speak to when I did start here, our students are not quiet, and they will definitely come and speak to us and make sure that that they're heard. And so when I first started here right before the pandemic, so the students were still in the building, was maybe like it was February. So I started in January, February. They said, "We need to meet with you, Miss Katie." I said, "Okay, pásale, come on in." Everyone took a seat, and they had lists of things that they wanted to see improved, and they wanted to make sure I knew what was going really well and how come we don't do this. And we had a great conversation. And so as far as like a formal sense, not that since I've been here, I can't speak that we have anything formal, but definitely very passionate about hearing from them when we're making decisions. And even when we were looking at how our program schedules and things would look like for this upcoming school year and the pandemic, we pulled students together and got feedback from them, and wanted to make sure that they still had input in that sense. So once we are slowly getting back to the new norm, because we're not going backwards, right? But to a new norm, as leadership, that's definitely been something that we want to formalize on how they can play more of a role in that sense. A great question. And Ms. Jolie, I don't know if you're shaking your head if you had more to add, or
Yeah, I
Ms.
mean, I
Norma?
think
Mhm.
I agree completely. And in the past, we've had like a student body. However, it's always been a challenge. Our students have other priorities and other needs, but again, they're not shy about talking about what they want to see changed in El Colegio. And initially, when they do come, they are shy, like they're used to being invisible, but they've learned how not to be here at El Colegio because they don't have the opportunity to. They're like, hey. So then they get so comfortable, it's like family. Hmm.
Mhm. How do you balance cultural identity conversations but be more prepared for professions and secondary education? Um, I don't know, Miss Jolie, if you wanna. I mean, like that's a huge thing. Is our students really the question in the chat there? And hi, Ruth. Nice to see your question. Um, it's important that our students know who they are, and our in one of our classes that they all go through right now, they're working on memoirs, and so they're researching their own selves and asking their families questions. And I've been sitting with some of our students that are finishing up their memoirs, and it's really beautiful to see them kind of process and acknowledge, and they're like, I want to know more about my abuela, I want to know more about this. And one of the moms is like, she keeps asking me all these questions. I'm like, good, but tell her, because that oral history is so incredibly important, because then they feel like they feel very confident in themselves, right? And then so our teachers just continually to work and help them see who they are. And Miss Jolie or Miss Norma or Brandon, feel free to add more as a student. How do you think we're doing?
I can start, and then Brandon, if you can pitch in maybe from your personal experience. So I think we're doing this way better now. So I know from the past, from having been in this space. So I started here in 2010, and then I left for about 3 years in between then, and I'm back 3 years now. And so from when I left to came back, I would say we have improved quite a bit in this area, because we are very strategic about our partnerships and who we align with. And so we're part of LEAP, which is Learn. I can't remember the acronym, but we're a conjunction of schools. So you may know it here in Minneapolis. They also align with JAG um, with a national program. And this year we have the Escalera grant with Unidos US. And both of those have a lot to do with students knowing themselves and becoming self-aware. And the cultural identity piece, Unidos has that part of it as well. And then having to navigate, moving into different spaces is something that our students already know how to do, but they're learning how to do it better now, right? All those skills that are necessary for post-secondary, we go through them, we talk about them, but we also bring in that lens of like, el papelito habla, like you need to do this, right? Because it's the first, like when you're talking about your resume, your cover letter, it's the first entryway into that position. But you also need to be yourself and see if it aligns, right? We also need to understand that part. This is how the systems are, but we also ask them to question why and what are some alternative ways. También.
Mm-hmm. And before you go to Brandon, I was going to say, and also all of our students, when they start with us, take an E3 assessment, which is Equity, Education, and Excellence. Did I get the acronym right? Yes. And it's ESAT. It's an assessment that shows what our students already, their strengths. So it's a strengths-based assessment where they're able to see, and you can kind of see up between, we have the little cards up here. Um, they can see how strong they are in adaptability and creativeness and innovation and cross-cultural communication and critical analysis, right? So it allows them to kind of see, oh, I'm really good at this, and these are the skills that I need, and how to use those, because those are the 21st century skills that we've learned through our trainings with E3 that they need for post-secondary and career and through their lives, right? So that's also another piece that we do here uniquely at El Colegio. Okay, Brandon, ahora tú.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you guys already like got most of it, but the thing is that, something that they taught me is that, a lot of people who are not, white, they are sometimes embarrassed to admit that they're from a different culture or ethnicity. And that's kind of what, well, not that kind of, but this is what El Colegio is really teaching us, that we need to be proud of our background. And, you know, and there are many ways, we learn about our history, not just like, the bad parts, but the good parts. If there was, during the video, there were some posters of scientists, female scientists to be more specific, from different cultures. And that's something that we learned, is that, different scientists, just people who contributed to society, that were from different cultures. That is one way to that El Colegio like has helped us feel proud of our identity. And like you said, is we need to, like they said, is that we still need to like kind of adapt to what society expects from us, but also like stand proud of our identity. And but one of the main things that they focus a lot on is what they said, that was like cross cultural communication, teamwork. And that is something we like at the end of every quarter. We award students and teachers that demonstrated those skills. And honestly, that's very for me, that's something that I've really like took in with me, because it's really preparing us for the working force. Because that's kind of my presentation. I'm going to be presenting tomorrow, and this is what my presentation is about. So a little preview is that the way that the old school system was created was by the factory model, which was just everybody sits in their place, just works alone. But that's not quite the thing now. We have to learn how to work with others. We need to, with different cultures, and that's what they're really teaching us at El Colegio. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I probably missed a couple things, but those are the ones that really stuck with me.
Perfect.
Perfect answer. I think there was a question, Katie, about how to replicate the model. You should come to Brandon's presentation.
Tomorrow, 10 to 12. You can see it on Facebook. And then, Norma, I think you would be a good one to answer how to replicate our program.
We're very expensive. That's the first thing that I would say. No, I think when I'm just like really out of words, because this is what one day I totally envision, that the staff and the students could just repeat and say and feel what, all these dreams that I had 10 years ago, and it's like happening, right now. Like they're just like, I don't have to say anything, but I think about duplicating the model. There's been a couple of asks, and I think the recipe is having the board that is right behind an executive director that believes in the same values. When El Colegio, 2 years ago, when one of our board members, not 2 years ago, it must be three, I lost the years with COVID, but I'm like, a year and a half before I left, we had a retreat and we revamped our mission and our vision and our core values. And one of our board members said to me, Norma, if the students at El Colegio don't understand why Black Lives Matter, the teachers are not doing their job. If the teachers are not teaching why Black Lives Matter, you're not hiring the right people. And if we're not talking about Black Lives Matter, then we shouldn't exist. So 2 years later, Mr. Floyd gets killed and we're ready. So that's the kind of people you need to have in order to even think about duplication. Because I think it's not El Colegio is never about the adults. It shouldn't be about the adults. It shouldn't be about teachers in the sense of, it should be about teachers from the administration standpoint, to push them and to make sure that they are the right candidates. But having a good mission and core values, that's what really going to help you duplicate. If you don't have that people behind, not just board, but like our authorizers, were there and supporting us 100%, like moving this, because El Colegio is so fragile in that sense that we survived 4 years of being watched by immigration in the corner of our school. Our kids had to learn how to listen to a whistle and go back into the building. So all of those things, that's what people think that like trauma is about in El Colegio. Actually, the students at El Colegio didn't get traumatized by that. But if you're in a bigger school where they're not talking about it, we're not doing any of that stuff, that's where trauma becomes an issue. So I think having the recipes is starting from a board that it really gets it, that it really understands the culture, the community, and they're making sure that these kids are not coming to El Colegio to learn how to make piñatas. Because I think that's a lot of the perception, that's how we are culturally affirming. Brandon, who came in, and I'm gonna put you out a little bit on blast, Brandon, but he didn't want to go to high school anymore. He was done because he was never seen for who he was in his school. He was one of the brightest kids in that building that I will not mention. And they will not moving forward because they couldn't believe that a child that just arrived in the United States a couple of years before would be that smart. So an accent, whatever stops other teachers at El Colegio will never stop. Your English level, those are barriers that the districts put that can be gone. At El Colegio, those barriers don't exist, and we make sure that they don't exist. So I think that's the duplication secret. You have the people who are willing to take all these barriers. The rest is easy. We had to learn, we had to fight, we had to cry. Every single person that is in the audience right now from El Colegio probably cried at one point or another, and from other places. And we came to El Colegio to heal. And that's why we understand why El Colegio, why their students need to be seen, need to be healed, need to feel that place that they belong. So I think the duplication secret is on having the right people who are, from your authorizer or your superintendent. I don't know if you're from a school district or a charter school, but we took a lot of heat from being a charter school. And I think our argument was, we're gonna be whatever helps the students. We're not systems. And we exist out of a response of the lack of response for our students and for staff in traditional districts. So at El Colegio, the student identity, we don't see Brandon as a Mexican student. We see Brandon as a super bright student, probably should be like the best gamer out there, like whatever. But they don't see that. They see an accent. They see all these other things. So he'll make it. I mean, he'll be fine. He'll be in our community, and he'll be in our community a healthy person, part of the community.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Norma. I see there's other questions as well. As social studies teacher, I'd love to hear more about how cultural responsiveness plays out in history courses and ethnic studies. I think Ms. Norma kind of explained just even how we are as a school, how we function, regardless if it's history courses or ethnic studies. We do offer ethnic studies here at El Colegio, but we also are always constantly talking, how is it infused in all of our classes, not just in a standalone ethnic studies. And El Colegio has been doing it for years. I mean, right, Miss Norma, since for at least 8+ years. 10 years. I don't know when it would have started, but has been offering that as a course for our students. And as well in literature, or we, when we interview teachers, we tell them we don't, the authors need to be an author of color if you're going to use it in the class, a part of your curriculum. So I mean, we make really bold statements and expectations for our staff on what they're going to be incorporating in there, in making sure that it's relevant to the students that we are serving. So I don't know if there's any more you'd want to add, Miss Jolie.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the other thing is, Miss Katie got it right as far as um, leadership really pushes us to talk about what's going on, right? And if we just go as business as usual, we're not doing our job, right? When everything around the world is changing, and if we're not talking about it, or if something happened 5 blocks, George Floyd, and we don't talk about it in the classroom, we're not doing our job. And so really just, taking that moment to really have those conversations about what's going on in the community, and acknowledging how we are responding to that is super important. And ethnic studies is in Spanish here. And so I
Yep.
think that's super important to know. Even some of our students who maybe English, they're better in their English, but they're learning ethnic studies in Spanish. So they're learning, regardless, the content, and they're learning words as well. They're expanding their brain and vocab in both languages. And so, that I think is really bold as a school to do. I don't know any other school who does it, and who encourages and pushes their staff to, like, all right, you all are talking about resumes. Oh, well, today or yesterday something happened, and we need to take that moment to have students have that space to talk about those that event, that situation.
And other courses that we have offered over the years in electives is Afro Latino studies. Currently we have music,
STEAM. So
social
it's
movements. And
yeah.
what we've offered, social movements and music. And now we have STEAM, through Unidos US. And trying to think of what other, I mean, we've offered a various set of electives, gender studies, etc. That are relevant, that means something to the students, because at the end of the day, it's all about becoming a contributing community member wherever you are, and helping them also see the different lenses, and kind of start breaking down and decolonizing what they're learning, and what is said in mainstream, and what does that mean, and where did that come from, and really breaking it down. Is there other questions? What pieces of advice would you give? We've answered that one. Thank you. Are there any other questions or thoughts that we didn't touch on? I'm just double checking the chat to make sure we didn't miss any. And like, Ms. Jolie says, Ms. Yolanda says, when there is something that happens in community, whether it's here locally or if it's internationally, we acknowledge things that are happening abroad as well, to make sure that we all as the adults take time to research and just process it aloud with their students. There's things that were happening in Colombia, there's things happening in Palestine, there's things happening all around that affect our students in different ways. And it's important that we hold that space and talk about it and educate ourselves about it. And what is our role in solidarity? Or is it just to make sure we're aware? What is it, right? And working that out with our students is incredibly important. And that's what we push our teachers to do. The film was little. I can share more about the mercado the students created. Yep. And so the kind of how we shared in, at the start of the pandemic, and so many of our families losing jobs and we were, reaching out and delivering to their houses, no contact, but dropping off the food bags that was shared in the video by Mr. Landon to our families every week. And then after the murder of George Floyd, excuse me, it was incredible to see the way the community needed our space right away. Can we use the parking lot? We need to, we have all this food to give away. And yes, El Colegio is a hub. What do you need? Here's our space. We got to meet the needs. And then the youth started showing up, and we're collecting so many donations of food and other grocery stores. And because, there was no Target, there was no Walgreens, there were so many things that were gone that people depended on um, during the uprisings. And so El Colegio was a safe space to come. It started out small and then quickly, organically just turned into something really big. And every morning before they would open, they would start in a circle and they would talk about how there was no judgment. This is healing. We need to heal together through all of this, and show up for the community. If Miss Jolie comes through and says she needs 6 milks, okay, take your 6 milks. We're not going to tell you you need this box and this is what it is for your household, because we knew that that was part of the processing and people's reaction from everything that was going on. And the students would go out to the line. We had lines of 100 people, and it would be hot, and we try to put up tents to cool people down and hand out waters for people as they were waiting to come in, because it was still COVID and you couldn't just let everybody come through. And they were just very intentional. They would go out and talk to folks waiting, talk to them about the anti-Blackness in our community and what is going on. What does Black Lives Matter mean? And why is, how are people showing up in their reaction to what's going on? And so it was just, it's hard to think, is it just happened, and we were just in the moment. So when we reflect back, we're just like, wow, this really happened. And the youth, I remember some of the staff were like, no. And I said, stop, this is not our space. Like we're in the circle, but they're leading, like let them lead us and we're going to listen, and they're like, you're right. I'm like, they know what they're doing. There's a lot of intentionality here. And yeah, I hope I'm answering your question, Alex. And we had staff, we partnered with other organizations, and we're giving out, Miss Yolanda had connections, and we were out in Shakopee, then we were out in Bloomington, and working with other charter schools to, any opportunity that we could and wherever we could go, working together in community during that time.
Yeah, and I think we needed it too, right? Like it was a way for us to cope as well, because we were in it too. It's not like we weren't living the same situation. We all lived pretty close, and we all were feeling the same traumas. And so, like Miss Norma says, we heal in community, and it was definitely it was work, but it's also a healing experience to just, we've been separated for so long, and yes, we're maintaining social distance, but even just being able to offer support in any way, and giving up your weekend.
You
Okay.
did it. Yeah, we were, the weekends, the days didn't matter. They all blended together, and people just rolled up their sleeves and did what they had to do. So yes, and I contribute that to just the way that the school is set up and how we've worked and made sure our students understand their roles in the community. And that's why, like Norma said, when you're replicating, like there's no question this happened and we knew what we had to do without let's sit and talk about it. It just was reactionary and the right thing. Um, and Norma, I don't know, I don't see any other questions, but I think it'd be really good because E3 is something that's really unique, and I think has really set El Colegio to be really strong, because it's training that our student or our staff go through. Kind of like Mr. Steve talked about how we're getting trained and bettering ourselves, and that helps us show up stronger for our students. So Ms. Norma, if you could share more about E3, I think that'd be really good.
Bob, you have a question,
Oh.
it says, Norma talk of the flag you'll got, and as someone who works in public schools, often the argument against being political is parents having issue with
contact our district saying it takes up academics.
I think in charter schools, you can choose to act like a school district and implement policies, just like school districts have been doing it for the last 50 years, or you don't. That's the beauty of charters that people don't speak about. They always talk about the high performing charters. Those are the charters that are going to go against the big districts and blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of big charters, I mean, small schools that have a very independent view of how we're going to run and how we're going to do. And I think that's the difference between being political or not. Being an educator is political,
Mm-hmm.
period.
Yep.
They think that it's not political, then why do they have a union?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's a lot of it that is very much into like just playing into it's noise. I don't know how to put it. It's noise to make, and still our kids are not graduating, not going to college, not being college ready. That's what we are there for. So I think in being political, as a Latino parent right now, I will speak as a Latino parent of a high school. My son is at El Colegio, by the way, is because there's there's no way I can put him in a 600, 800 school when he has always gone to small schools, and he wants to be seen, and he deserves to be seen. And at El Colegio, they see him because they see everybody, not because they see Ms. Norma's son, but they see everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a big difference that I think instead of telling parents to change a system at this point, you have to find the system that will work for you as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Find the school that is going to do that for your child
Yep.
instead of trying to change something that is been broken for I don't know how long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's answered the questions of, because yeah, it's too much in the big district. It's too much.
Yep. And I think too, like when our we have orientation, parent orient. Yep. We have parent orientation, and that they're explain the curriculum that we use. Charter schools, parents choose us, right? Like they're coming to us. And I think that's what, like, even Ms. Norma explained too earlier, is when you have your board and your policies written out, this is who we are. It's not about being political, it's about being humanizing the, the realities that we're all living, and not letting that noise of fear of, because who's that fear serving, right? Like, it's not serving anybody. So, but Ms. Norma, I know you were going to talk a little bit about E3.
So E3 for people who I'll put the I don't know. Eventually, I will put it in the www.e3educate.org, I think. And E3, when we found E3 was because Jonathan, who's on the video, said, Ms. Norma, I'm in a conference at the University of Minnesota, and they're talking about cultural resiliency. And this guy is like talking about everything that is happening at El Colegio. And I was like, who's that? Like, I had no idea. So I found out who he was, and I chased him and became really good friends. And we were doing everything that he's teaching about. And because the reason why it was a really good marriage is because we were already doing it. He came to give us names, like what you're doing is called this, what you're doing is called that. And so all the asset base today, he has a um, survey that the students take, and it tells them like how they're doing in the 5 competencies for 21st century skills. So the kids, okay, they know math, but can they be in a team? I used to tell the students at El Colegio, I hire people for what I know. I fire people because they are not team players. right? That's what usually happens. People are really good at something, but they don't know how to play well with others. So all these things, the students start to realize that, wait a minute, like I'm super adaptable, or I'm like, I can talk to. One of our students gave us a really good example. He said, when I get on the bus at El Colegio and I go um,
Mm.
north, I have to take another bus right on Franklin and Bloomington. He said, just in that what is it, 10 blocks, whatever number of blocks, right there, I heard like 5 different languages. And I have to say, excuse me, or gracias, or whatever, salam alaikum, whatever I have to say to get through. And then I take the bus to the Mall of America. I'm a server there. He said, and I have to speak like in the widest, and I'm speaking the way the student will talk, the widest English you can imagine is normal. So if that's not cross-cultural communication, then what is it?
Mhm.
So that means he can be a manager. He can have his own business that will serve the entire community, not just the Latino community. I think for students to understand all those assets that they come with, we didn't teach it at El Colegio.
They
We didn't
came
teach
with it.
Brian he had to be adaptable. He had to adapt to a school that was like, what, 800 students, and no one sees you, and they think that you're actually not that smart. So they have a different idea, and he had to adapt to whatever they were thinking of him. And then come to El Colegio and adapt to, like, now everybody sees me. That's the problem at El Colegio, that it's come to the administrators and they'll be like, why everybody knows my business? It's not like they know your business. It's like they've been asking you just your name because they want to see everybody. But
Mhm.
I think having E3, like, really understand, the beauty of E3 is that you work at your own pace. Because everybody gets into different conversations and different ways to um, implement it. So I would encourage it. But for people who want to duplicate in a big district, you can start with your class by getting trained with E3. There's trainings at El Colegio every year, like at the beginning of the school year. Um, and they, the teachers at El Colegio are trainers. So now they can keep duplicating that way. So each community can find their own hub.
Yep. Thank you. And I see one last question about how our graduates are doing after they leave El Colegio. And so, like life happens, right? So all of our students who do graduate are accepted to post-secondary institutions. And some of them, like Brandon, who's a very bright student, I need to take my time. I want to make sure I'm making the right decision. They may defer a year or they may go right into it. And some maybe stick through it, and then we see others that life happen, or they went a different turn, or they maybe want to go to a different school, or they're working. And I don't, I feel like we've had even conversations, Ms. Norma and I, about this, like why it is there's just, you have to finish in this amount of years, et cetera. And I just graduated Friday and it with my master's, and it took me 12 years to get my master's because I had 3 kids in between and a career, so life happens. I was working in youth work and doing my work during it, right? And so we have to normalize those stories, that the routes that they may take longer for different various reasons. And then 2, I would ask the college institutions, are they seeing them? Are they, are they getting too scared right away? I can't speak to that, but maybe Miss Jolie, because you're as a school counselor, and Miss Norma, you've been here longer, they come and tell you, but that would be my first reaction of what I've learned for the little bit of time I've been here.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I started, I came back as kind of the academic counselor and as a school counselor. We really encourage higher education. But I think also one of the things that, fine, they're going to school, great. Like, we're educators, right? That's what we do. But the other thing that I think I'm most impressed of our graduates is how they are so aware of the social justice issues. So I'm like, we can't become friends with our students right away, but like 2 years after, like, I learned so much from our former graduates. Like every time I see something, they are so with it. They understand what's going on in the world around them. They don't ignore it. They stand in solidarity with our Black and Indigenous brothers and sisters. Like, they are there. They're in the front line. So honestly, like, as far as college access, I think within the next few years we'll have like 4-year college graduates soon. I'm pretty sure, and I'm sure we have a few out there, and I can't identify them all. We have small classes, so typically it's anywhere between 10 to 20 12th graders graduating in a class. So it's about 100 students. So I can't say like all of them have made it through, and I can't count all of them, but I know that they become really great human beings. And that's really what I think it is what we're doing.
And I even got to meet some that came back when we had the mercado, and I'm like, okay, tell me what you liked about El Colegio. And then of course I'm like, I should have recorded you and saved it. It's just like these conversations in passing. And they, a lot of them repeated, they're like, you need to show up for your community. I learned that I have to take care of my community, and that for whomever it is, it's a different path for each one, right?
I think also that the graduates from El Colegio have one thing in common, is that, well, they have a lot of things in common, but I think one that really sticks with me when I see them again, 10 years from now, or whatever. One, they really question the education that their kids are receiving, or their siblings behind them are getting. Like, they really learn how to navigate. So we're teaching not just one individual person, we're teaching across. And that's what I think the Colegio should be very proud of, that parents get really like, okay, so that's not what I'm supposed to look like, right? No, put him in another school, but like, who cares? Like, this whole thing, like, find your niche, find your, your people. And it doesn't have to be a all Latino school. For a lot of families, that like, that's not what we're encouraged. We're encouraged, your kid is an artist, what is he doing in a school that they don't teach art, or they don't value art, or engineering, or whatever? Like, find where the kids can be seen. So I think that's something that the graduates really put on. And the other thing is that our graduates don't give up. They don't give up. They keep going, and they're like, they call you up and they're like, Miss Norma, they gave me, now I'm a manager, and like, I'm taking these trainings and whatever. So I think the issue has always been is that we get measured against 4-year graduation, going to 4-year colleges. And that is so not culturally competent for us, because when we send kids to a 4-year college, they lose the language, they lose the touch with the culture. They think the mainstream culture is better. So when that happens, we lose a member of the community. We lose a teacher, a possible teacher, a possible doctor that will understand why, pues me voy a tomar mi manzanilla instead of, like, whatever pill they want to pump me. Like, like all this thing, we lose people in our community. And I think our Colegio really, like, mission is to stop that assimilation that is so dangerous for us, so unhealthy, so unhealthy.
Sorry, I hate to have to cut this conversation off. I feel awful. This is incredible. And I think we could keep this conversation going at least another hour, if not 5. But Katie and I have to go do another conversation in a different Zoom room, like a few minutes ago. So I'm so sorry. Thank you all so much for being here. This has been incredible, and let's all stay in touch. This session is recorded, so you can check it out later, and we'll share the video as well if you want to see that and share that.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Miss Yoli, Miss Norma, Brandon. Gracias.
Thanks, Brandon, for coming.
Yeah. Bye.